And hello, good people of the internet. It is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo. And in this episode, I want to talk a bit about being invisible. So I've been posting some stuff on social media, mostly on Facebook, about it's that scene or that panel from The Invisibles, which says, "Big Brother is watching you, so become invisible," and various other things. Just because I've been rereading The Invisibles and it's in my mind, and I really like it. Anyway, people have been asking me, but how exactly do you become invisible? And first of all, I'd say, well, think of it this way. What's another word for invisible? Hidden. What's another word for hidden? It's a cult. So, familiarize yourself with how a cult works. But that may be not too helpful of an answer. Other than reading The Invisibles, another thing you can do is listen to Stuart Wilde, who has an entire chapter on invisibility in his book, The Quickening, which is not quite, I suppose, what Grant Morrison is pointing out as in The Invisibles, but it's similar. So I'm going to read from it and see what you think. When you don't have to change things, you become free. For you move through the etheric of the world without disturbing it. In one way, it makes you invisible. Imagine your life in these terms. You are a warrior. You have to scale the walls of an enemy castle at night without disturbing anyone. On the battlements roost a flock of geese. The slightest error or sound, the minutest disturbance, a pebble tumbling into the rocks below, a cough, and you are dead. How will you do it? You have to be very confident about your abilities and very aware of your surroundings. You would have to take time to scope out the castle in minute detail. You would have to adapt to the circumstances by wearing dark clothes. You would have to check and double check all the resources available to you. Your equipment, the nooks and crannies, the phases of the moon, cloud density, any covering noise that would assist you, like say a thunderstorm. And you would have to make sure before you set out that your timing was right to ensure that your assault was not made on a night when they doubled the guard. But most of all, you would have to think in terms of moving in silently and moving out again, touching nothing, disturbing nothing. This is the energy of the warrior sage. Try this etheric exercise. Go to a crowded place, like a shopping mall on a Saturday, which, I mean, at the minute we can't, but you'll get the idea. Center your concentration completely within your five senses. Let nothing distract you. Walk in silence, eyes cast down, looking a yard or two in front of you, attempting to walk through the mall and back again, touching no one, looking at no one and disturbing nothing. Use your senses to tell you where the people are and avoid interaction. In fact, maybe you could do this very well with a social distancing element. As you can't look up, you will have to be acutely aware of what is coming towards you, but also you will have to be aware of what is to your side and behind you. If someone talks to you, ignore them. Once you've completed the exercise successfully, go back the next Saturday and attempt the advanced course, which is to traverse the mall and back again with no one seeing you. You might consider it impossible just walking through the mall. Someone is bound to see you. That's not so. Their eyes may look in your direction, but if your energy is centered within you and your thoughts and feelings tightly collected inside you, the composite of your body, thoughts and emotions do not register on the attention of the passerbys. How many times have you walked into a mall looking for a store and walked right past it? If you can miss a store, you can easily miss a crafty warrior sage who's deliberately trying to hide from you. Now, if one is serious about not being seen, then one would wear grey, preferably dark grey. It's not a colour that projects much energy, so people don't notice it. Have you ever wondered why the very secret services of the world use grey cars? The fact is, if you buy a red car, everyone goes out of their way to hit you. If you buy a grey car, you can melt into the background. So there you are in the mall wearing grey clothes, and you would choose a pair of soft shoes that don't clank as you walk. And you move through the mall, maintain a steady pace, for if you alter your step, people notice the change of rhythm. Your line of sight should be set first horizontally out in front of you, then drop down 10 or 15 degrees so that you are looking ahead but slightly downwards. This way you will be able to see if people notice you. Now here's the final trick. If you look at the passerbys, they in turn will notice you, for in looking you transfer a part of your etheric to them and they feel it. What you have to do is allow reality in the mall to impact your sight without looking at it. Your sight perception has to be passive, not active. The ability to see without looking will be vital to you once you get into the etheric. For there, energy is moving so fast you don't have time to engage your consciousness in looking. There you will have to allow the etheric reality to touch you. Finally, as you move through the mall in the warrior sage mode, you hold a consciousness of non-judgment, non-criticism, so that none of your mind projects beyond you to the passerbys. More than non-judgment. Well done, Tommy. You develop the feeling of not even having an opinion about anything that you see in the mall. Non-judgment is an active response. You're looking at another and say, I will not judge that. This engages your attention in non-judging. By training your mind and not having opinions, you become passive and receptive. You remain centered deep within yourself. Your mind perceives things and does not react in the slightest. In a way, this attitude becomes an affirmation of your absolute acceptance of life. Once you are comfortable with accepting reality as it is, you can move about without others seeing you, for the impact you make on the reality as you move is minimum. You step in the non-world between normal reality and the etheric. You step beyond the perceptions of others to a world of your own. Any trick at customs, you might think, and you are right. The only problem at a border post is that if you're carrying contraband and you exhibit the slightest emotion, if you have an opinion about it, the customs officer will nab you. You may wind up in the slammer practicing your meditations in silence for quite some time. On the other hand, you may not. You may become very rich very quickly. Many years ago, I got a job as an advisor for a group of upmarket smugglers. Good men, true as they were, with very definite opinions as to their individuality. The Venezuelan government had an opinion in those times that a certain make of denim jeans should carry a 500% tariff. My employers, bless their little cotton socks, had a slightly different view. They felt that the indigenous population of those parts ought to be able to purchase the jeans without getting stifled by the government. Stiffed even by the government. Stifled too. Now, you may say that my friends were morally wrong, but who's to say that the opinion of a Mickey Mouse government official is more valid than the opinion of a gentleman smuggler? It was not as if the money collected by the Venezuelan customs ever reached the people. My function for the group was to purchase the jeans in London, a perfectly legitimate act, and to arrange for the shipment to Caraccio, a small island off the Venezuelan coast. From there, the product was shipped to the mainland by boat to be delivered into the hands of many a delighted customer a day or two later. I didn't stick at the job long enough to make a lot of money, but while in the group's employ, I learned the psychology of the trade and found the experiences valuable in my understanding of people and life. It helped me learn detachment and non-judgment. The wonderful thing about all the laws and all the world's insisted on imposing on its people is that they allowed common folk a special creativity as they invent ingenious ways of getting round those laws. Their antics seem to me to be the exercise in the simplest forms of etheric invisibility. In my view, providing you're not hurting anyone, whatever your opinion is fine by me. I think it's best for one to develop a creativity society approves of, but I can see the point of many disadvantaged people who, suffering from a lack of opportunity in education, drift into a more twilight existence. Who am I to judge that? Such a one was John, a man of about 50 who had struggled all his life to make ends meet doing worthless warehouse jobs in the East End of London. John scrimped and saved over 20 years and eventually bought a boat. He developed a small travel agency business offering conducted scenic tours of the English Channel at night. His customers were gentlefolk from Pakistan who, desirous as they were in reaching England and having heard back in Rawalpindi, I'm sorry for my pronunciation as always, that Merry England was the place to be, and were prepared to pay £1,500 for the benefit of John's safe and secure passage. John loaded his customers on the northern coast of France near Boulogne and delivered them in robust good health at a small cove on the coast of Kent. After 18 months, John joined the middle class and bought a couple of small houses in Hillingdon. About that time, the local fuzz got wind. The fuzz is English for police, by the way, in case you don't know. Got wind, like Simon Pegg's The Fuzz film, so I'm sure you all do know. Got wind of John's tour and paid him a visit. The cops in England are still very gentlemen. They even call you sir when they stop you for speeding. The sergeant of the local constabulary took John for a drink in the pub just off the Portobello Road. He explained to my mate that the cops knew of John's enterprise, but they couldn't prove it, and John, after a few drinks, sort of admitted to his part in the affair. The sergeant, a kindly man who's not above a little commerce himself, told John that if he did not quit, the cops would arrest him on trumped-up charges that would ensure John's detentions at the Queen's pleasure for several years, but that if he quit, no more would be said of the matter. John's nautical days ended there and then. What I learned from all these exotic characters was priceless to me in metaphysical terms. First, I learned that once you don't judge or impose your morality on others, it sets you free emotionally. Secondly, I saw that in the nondescript lifestyle of these characters, there was an unusual freedom. Albeit their bent to criminality was in the eyes of society not to be approved of, yet within their criminality was a goodness, a fervour, an affirmation perhaps to redress some of the inequalities of life. All of these characters had developed an invisibility stemming from society's alienation of them, so they became detached. Not belonging allowed them a creative freedom that another, perhaps concerned about his social standing, involved as he might be in sustaining a position, does not possess. It seems to me that the warrior sage and the twilight people are not so very different. The detachment and secrecy of the criminal is motivated by his need to stay safe and to remain outside of society. The detachment of the warrior sage is exactly the same, the only difference being the criminal's alignment is negative, not wishing to be caught, and the warrior sage is positive, not wishing to be caught up in. I learned as a young man that there's a special fluidity in non-attachment, yet the whole of our education and programming brainwashes us into sustaining society. It forces us to remain within its clutch in order to sustain the status quo. It takes effort to push away from that and create the individual detached and free. Emotionally, we are constantly suckered into having to belong, yet it takes only a little effort of mental agility to begin to feel more secure in not belonging. Try this next time you hear two people discussing a problem. Let's say one is asking the other the way to the bus station. Don't butt in, even if you know the answer. Use the situation to train yourself to stay uninvolved. Now, if one of the two asks you, where's the bus station? Tell them. But if they don't ask, say nothing. What you're trying to learn is to become as little attached to events as possible. You are learning to stand on one side of the common reality. In becoming the silent observer, you gain a quickening, which is what this entire book is about. We teach our children in school to impress, to perform. Who knows where the bus station is? I do. And 50 hands go up. And the mind of the child says, let me prove that I am clever, that I have worth, that I am brighter than the others. As the warrior sage, you're not going to mess with people to prove anything to anyone. You don't care if people think you are a complete idiot. In fact, you will generate that impression, somewhat as a smokescreen for your true power. The Mr. Magoo image of the bumbling fool who somehow managed to step off the roof just as the construction girder swings into place is appropriate to the warrior sage. What time? Grand. In the secrecy and silence of your quest, you're looking to hide your power. People don't understand how you achieve the things you do. With the smokescreen, you reduce the threat to others. Your power, once consolidated, will frighten people. They will never be sure of how much you know about them, and the more you know, the more often you will say nothing. You will constantly maneuver your troops in the high ground. There your energy rests, silent and unassailable. If you're coming into power, avoid the pitfall of talking about it or having people endorse or acknowledge it. This is a common weakness. It exposes you, dissipates the power, and leaves you uncertain of whether or not the power you feel is actually real. For example, many females nowadays have completed the process started some years ago of getting the power back from males in their lives. This is a good move and just in time. If they don't take the power back, like right now, the next 10 years will be a rocky path. This was written in the 80s, incidentally. But if a woman becomes overly aggressive, the baby goes out with the bathwater. The male retreats and she loses a friend and possible helper. Because people are weak, they always react to overt shows of strength. One doesn't want to generate the negativity, especially when one is trying to get things done in a hurry. The warrior sage, while not responding emotionally to the reactions of others, is at the same time the consummate diplomat. He knows what people want to hear when he throws candies from the back of the truck to keep them happy. To achieve great things, one needs the support of others. The diplomat listens to the needs of others, some of which are expressed covertly, and then provides as best he can what the people want, when they want it, with the minimum of effort on his part. One has to learn to be crafty. But crafty I don't mean sneaky or dishonest. It's more the craft of humanhood. Understanding the world so totally and reading Mechanical Man so completely that one knows what people want before they know what they one knows what people want before they know what they want. It's only a matter of looking for the signs. I remember walking in a dense wood as a child in England with my father. After we'd walked about an hour, I had no clue where we were. My father asked me, which way is north? It's a cloudy day. I looked up to the sun and got no help. I did not know. My father pointed to one direction and said, this is north. He explained that the rain and moisture in England is blown over the Atlantic and arrives in the west. The moss in the tree is always on the wet side or to the west of the tree. Knowing where the west is, north is but a deduction. I remember thinking how clever that was. Life is full of moss on the wet side if you look for it. That may or not be true, incidentally, so don't be going by moss and trees. A part of your craftiness is silence and secrecy. Again, by keeping silent, you are not being covert. You're just being quiet. There is a tremendous difference between lying and not answering people's questions or inquiries too specifically. In the late 60s and early 70s, we were taught to share our feelings. The Gestalt therapy was all the rage. You remember the stuff. I'm okay, you're okay, and thank you for sharing it. We were taught the benefits of putting it out there and communicating to our nearest and dearest every little twang of the heart chakra. I'm not against communication, for it allows us to live in the truth while relating to others. It's also very helpful on your climb up the energy ladder from confusion to consolidation. However, once you have it together, there are many parts of your life that you will never talk about. You will deal with individuals on a need-to-know basis. Besides the need to hide your power, there's another good reason for keeping your methods to yourself. Have you ever wondered why the European occult brotherhoods always had a secrecy as a pivotal point of their philosophy? There were several reasons. First, in the olden days, the Christians tried to maneuver themselves into monopoly over magical practices. The Roman Catholic Mass is a prime example. As they struggled for supremacy over the minds of people, they naturally outlawed the competition. Anyone chipping away at the monopoly was persecuted, given a hard time, and or killed. The negativity of the more wacko Christian cults is still prevalent today. It is a body of psychic antagonism 2,000 years old, which assails anyone who doesn't accept their principles. I don't mean to imply that all Christian sects are similar. There are many, in fact, that are holy and good and serve an honourable function, but there are as many which sustain a tribal neurosis antagonism to an individual's freedom. That neurosis is part of the collective unconscious and can be harmful to you. Silence, non-combative attitude, and a smokescreen are your key. Further, on an energy level, silence allows you to make use of a psychic tension. As you conceive an idea in your mind, its strength lies in the correlation between the amount of concentration you have given the thought, the level of motion you have exerted around it, either positive or negative, and the way you feel about the thought. That is, whether you consider it to be a fantasy, a daydream, or a reality. There are other factors which empower your thoughts, but for the moment, centre on the fact that each thought is contained in a casing of electromagnetic power. Imagine it as a molecule containing your special thought. The tension in that molecule builds up as you centre on the thought and empower it. The thought is stored in your memory, and it begins to lose power if you do not concentrate on it from time to time. It also loses power if you harass it. You can over-concentrate on something. As the vitality of the thought builds and begins to swamp your entire being, your whole energy changes and you begin to pull correspondences from reality, events which match the thought, which have the same feeling or correspondence within them. If you break silence and talk about your thoughts, you release the psychic tension in the molecule. By living through the idea in your words, you engage your feelings. So your mind, which does not differentiate between fantasy and reality, is actually living and breathing the event while you talk. Once the event is lived, most of its psychic tension is released. This is why when you feel uncomfortable or experience fear, it helps to discuss it with another. As you develop power and start to use your mind to deliver life to you, a dramatic change takes place. Instead of you waking into daily life and haphazardly experience whatever is there, reality comes and gets you. You bend space and time, pulling you to the reality you require. You will not want to dissipate what may amount to months of effort in one silly conversation. Keeping the most important things to yourself allows you to work on them without distraction. The other reason for secrecy and silence is that in silence there is a mystery. I talked about this at length in Affirmations, which is the previous book. Now I'll simply say that mystery grants additional impact and power. The reality you have taken within you becomes more real. Others project into that reality. First of all, they cannot destroy what is there because they are ignorant of it. Secondly, they grant you a power that perhaps you do not as yet have. It helps you. By keeping the world guessing, you are always one step out ahead of the program, and people find it difficult to put their finger on who you are and what you are. Therefore, they can't stick you in a box, and therefore you become invisible. I love Stuart Wilde when he's in this kind of mode. He has some great things to say when he has the magician hat on, which of course he wouldn't call himself a magician, but he certainly is. That book is great, as is The Force and as is Infinite Self. His later books have their own charm in a very doom porn way. But good people of the internet, I hope that helps you in becoming invisible. It certainly has helped me in becoming invisible. And may you have a great day. May your life be wonderful, and may our best days be ahead. Be well.